In 1943, the world is ablaze in the inferno of the Second World War. The entire civilized Western world, naturally. Newspapers are bursting with stories of Stalingrad, the Allied landings, the heroism of our boys. Tears of admiration roll down the cheeks of noble citizens gazing at portraits of the savior of civilization, Sir Winston with his ever-present cigar and victorious V. Oh, what a spectacle! What a sublime struggle of good against evil! Now, my dear hypocrites, tear your noble gaze away from Europe's ruins and the maps of the Pacific for just a moment. Turn your head slightly eastward, to where your press so carefully avoided pointing its lenses, to British India, to Bengal, to where, at this very moment, under the shadow of the Union Jack, a small, utterly insignificant tragedy was unfolding. A tragedy that London preferred to shroud in deathly silence. Because who were these people? Colonial vermin, cogs in the imperial machine, cannon fodder for our troops? Indeed. While you applauded Churchill, while you prayed to him as if he were St. George slaying the fascist dragon, this very saint of yours was calmly, cynically, and calculatedly killing millions, not with gas, not with bullets, far simpler, with hunger. With a cold, bureaucratic, imperial hand, in a country overflowing with rice, in a region that fed half of Asia. But that rice wasn't for them. It was for you, the empire, its military stockpiles, its strategic reserves, its comfort. So yes, 1943, the year of the great fight for freedom, and the year of a great crime, committed not by Hitler, but by your hero. Welcome to real history, ladies and gentlemen. It's not as grandiose, but it reeks of the stench of corpses from the streets of Calcutta, a smell meticulously aired out from your history textbooks.
And now, you lovers of pretty tales about the white man's burden and the civilizing mission, buckle up. Your imperial prosperity machine was working like a charm, especially for the motherland. Let's take our jewel in the crown, Bengal, a green paradise, rivers, rice, fish, the very soil oozing with abundance. The locals, oh, those charming natives, knew how to feed their land for centuries. But then we, the British, arrived with a mission, with civilization, with greed that knew no bounds. Our brilliant plan? Simpler than boiled turnips. Squeeze them dry, force peasants to grow not food for themselves, but cash for London, indigo, jute, opium. Oh yes, those saintly gentlemen poisoned China with opium straight from here. Steal the harvest. Impose outrageous taxes, not in money, but in kind. Rice. Tons of it. Can't pay? We take your land. Starving? That's the least of our concerns. Turn on the rice pump. All the surplus, and often the bare necessities, loaded onto ships and, poof, into the holds. Destination, the motherland, the troops, European speculators. The result? Bengal, which fed half of Asia, could no longer feed itself. A farmer who grew a ton of rice died with an empty bowl, watching his harvest sail to the shores of the Thames. This isn't economics, ladies and gentlemen. This is daylight robbery under Her Majesty's flag. But we built railways, the empire's apologists will whimper. Oh, indeed, to haul the loot from the hinterlands to the ports faster. It's like a thief boasting about buying a speedy getaway car for the crime scene. And when 1942 hit, and the Burmese rice, the colony's efficient managers didn't flinch. Did the peasants still have scraps? Seize them! Boats for fishing or ferrying grain between villages, confiscate and burn them, all in the name of strategy, to keep them from the Japanese. a strategy of squeezing the last drops from a corpse. Mark this. The famine of 1943 wasn't a natural tragedy. It was the planned outcome of centuries when Bengal wasn't a land of people, but a cash cow for the greedy shareholders of the East India Company and its heir, the British Crown. A cow milked to its last drop of blood.
So, 1942, Japan seizes Burma. For your gallant British strategists in Delhi and London, this isn't a military setback. Oh no, it's a golden opportunity. A chance to finally crush those pesky Bengalis still clinging to the hope of not dropping dead like flies. The plan is devilishly simple in its cannibalistic brilliance. Take note of the code names, ladies and gentlemen. Denial policy. Don't confuse it with denial. This is all too real. Spot rice in a peasant's hands? Seize it. Hear a rustle in the granaries? Requisition it. Find a handful of grain with a widow? Confiscate it. All for the sacred military needs of the empire. The logic is ironclad. Better to let the grain rot in warehouses or ship it to Australia, just in case, than leave it to those natives. Famine? A mere side effect. Boat denial. Now here's a masterpiece of military idiocy laced with racism. Your generals, lounging in leather armchairs 3,000 kilometers from Bengal, decided the Japanese might sail in. On what? On flimsy fishing boats that a Bengali can barely paddle offshore? Obviously. So we must deprive the enemy of this fearsome fleet. The order? Seize and destroy all boats capable of carrying more than 10 people. Tens of thousands of vessels, from fishing dinghies to small trading barges, were confiscated, smashed with axes, burned on the shores. Imagine a people whose lives revolve around rivers, stripped of their legs and arms. Fishing? Forbidden. Transporting grain from a fertile district to a starving one? Impossible. Fleeing death? Forget it. But it was a strategic necessity, the defenders of imperial wisdom will cry. Oh, indeed, strategically turning a living, breathing region into a giant concentration camp with no escape routes. Japan never got a single boat, but Bengal got a collapse of fishing, a paralysis of internal trade, mass unemployment. The irony, the British later admitted the operation was utterly useless militarily. It was a pure, unadulterated act of intimidation and bloodletting. As one cynical official put it, we took away their mobility and with it their ability to rebel. Famine? A mere side effect. The result? By the end of 1942, Bengal was deliberately stripped of food, livelihoods, and hope. All that was left was to wait for the dying to begin. And death didn't keep them waiting long. Your strategists created the perfect conditions for it. Bravo, ladies and gentlemen, bravo.
And now, devotees of Sir Winston Churchill, with his trademark V and cigar, brace your tender feelings. We're about to peek behind the curtains of your heroic spectacle. While he delivered fiery speeches about freedom and human dignity for whites, here's what was happening in his imperial domain. Fact 1. Racism as state policy. Your savior of civilization considered Indians a beastly people breeding like rabbits. Not a metaphor, his own words in private circles. Bengalis, to him, were a lower race, protecting whom from the Japanese is like protecting dirt. And when those rabbits began dying by the millions, Churchill's response was worthy of a patented cynic. If there's famine in India, why is Gandhi still alive? Think about it. The head of government, Learning of a humanitarian catastrophe doesn't send food, he cracks jokes about killing the world's leading pacifist. This isn't dark humor. This is the psyche of a sociopath in a tailored suit. Fact 2. Deliberate blocking of aid. Cold calculation. Australia offers to send 100,000 tons of wheat. Churchill personally vetoes it. The US is ready to help. His reply, no ships available, while those same ships carried Australian wheat to Europe for strategic reserves. Canada sends a request, ignored. Why? Because his plan mattered. Hoard food for the invasion of Europe, which wouldn't happen until 1944. Not a single bushel for the natives. His words to officials, Indians are to blame for their own famine. Encouraging them encourages laziness. The genius logic, millions are dying, they must not be hard-working enough. Fact 3. Famine by design. While Calcutta's streets turned into corridors of corpses, up to 30,000 bodies hauled away weekly from the city alone, British India continued exporting rice. In 1943, at the height of the famine, 70,000 tons shipped to Ceylon, Iraq, the Middle East. Another 10,000 tons sailed to Europe for army needs. And that's just rice. Wheat, beans, flowed out in streams. Where's the military necessity? In the fact that British warehouses in Europe were bursting with surplus that could have saved Bengal. Churchill knew this, knew it, and changed nothing. Conclusion for the blind worshippers. Your Great Britain didn't just allow the famine, he engineered its continuation. He was the manager of a genocide by neglect. His hand didn't tremble signing the death warrant for millions simply because the victims were the wrong skin color and the wrong faith. While Europe sang odes to him for saving civilization, he was methodically strangling another civilization, Bengal's. Two faces of one titan? No. Two faces of one monster, one for the whites, the other for those he deemed cattle. Take a seat, Winnie fans. Your idol just tumbled from his pedestal straight into a hellish abyss.
And here it is, 1943, the climax, the time when hell spilled onto the streets of Bengal and became a routine sight. Calcutta, the jewel of the empire. Your splendid colonial avenues are now roads of death. Corpses of children, women, and elders lie in heaps. Sanitary teams can't keep up. 30,000 bodies a week in the city alone. Mothers sell their children for a cup of rice. Cannibalism. Not rumors, but police reports. And what does your enlightened administration do? It pulls out its quills and bills of lading, because business comes first. Imperial duty, corpses be damned. Facts that chill the blood, and which London carefully hid. At the height of the famine, in the summer of 1943, ships sail from Bengal's ports. Their holds are stuffed to the brim with Bengali rice. Where to? To Ceylon, to feed your soldiers and officials. To Iraq and the Middle East for your military bases, even to Europe to top off warehouses already bursting with surplus. How much? Rice alone at least 80,000 tons in 1943. That's billions of calories that could have saved hundreds of thousands of lives. Plus wheat, legumes, oil. By whose order? By the order of Her Majesty's Cabinet, approved by your saintly Winston. But it's war. The army must eat, the system's defenders will wail. Oh, certainly. But why does the army in Egypt or Ceylon eat its fill while the army of corpses in Calcutta does not?
Why did strategic reserves in Europe, unused until 1944, let grain rot while children rotted on Bengal sidewalks? The empire's logic. A Bengali life equals zero value. Rice in a European warehouse equals victory's golden reserve. Death of colonial rabbits equals collateral costs. A quote from a British report of the time, a masterpiece of cynicism. The famine in Bengal is more than a shortage of food. It is a collapse of a society committing suicide. Suicide? This was murder. Cold-blooded, calculated, sanctioned at the highest levels. Murder committed by the stroke of a bureaucrat's pen signing off on rice exports from a dying province. Murder endorsed by Churchill's silence. The result? In 1943, the British Empire didn't just allow famine. It actively, deliberately, with bureaucratic precision, exported lives from Bengal in exchange for gold and strategic reserves.
While Europe hailed Churchill as the champion against tyranny, his system was perpetrating a far filthier, more hypocritical tyranny. A tyranny of economic strangulation and rice-fueled death warrants. This isn't history. This is a verdict. Numbers, policies, export quotas, all abstractions. To grasp the famine of 1943, you must see through the eyes of those who survived that hell, hear the whispers of the dying, read the diaries written by trembling hands over corpses. Scene 1, Calcutta, the city cemetery. The streets, not sidewalks, beds for corpses. They lie uncollected for days. Dogs, rats, vultures, the only sanitation crew. The smell? A sickly sweet stench of decay mixed with the reek of excrement. People relieve themselves where they die. Skeletons in rags. People are no longer people. Walking skeletons, skins stretched taut, bellies swollen with hunger-induced ascites, eyes empty, bottomless. Children? Tiny old men with wrinkled faces. They don't cry. No strength left. Markets of death. Bazaars sell clay, tree leaves, bark. A handful of wild grain buys a daughter. A dead rat sparks a neighbor's murder. Scene 2. The villages. Silence of graves. Empty huts. Entire villages wiped out. Doors flung open. Inside, only wind and scraps of straw. On the floor, dark stains. The last traces of those who couldn't rise. Rivers as cemeteries. Bodies aren't buried. They're dumped in the water. The Ganges, once sacred, now a sewer of death. Fish, feeding on corpses, are poisoned, but they're eaten because the choice is to die today or tomorrow. Ghost roads, paths where refugee crowds once trudged to cities, now trails of the dead. Every 100 meters, a gnawed skeleton, gnawed by dogs or by others just as starved. Testimony of a doctor, Calcutta Hospital, 1943. In Ward 4 lies a woman. She's 25, weighs 19 kilograms. She's motionless, eyes open. Beside her, her child, 2 years old. He suckles her breast, but the breast is dry, no milk for weeks. The child sucks blood and pus from cracked nipples. The woman doesn't scream. She has no strength to moan. She stares at the ceiling. We know she'll die tonight. The child, by morning. We can't help. We have no food, only morphine to dull their agony. Testimony of a survivor,
Asia Bibi, village near Barisal. My father died first, then my younger brother. Mother said, "Let's go to Calcutta, they're giving out gruel." We walked for a month. Mother carried my little sister. She stopped crying on the third day. Mother carried her for 5 more days, then realized she was dead. Left her by the road. In Calcutta, a rice truck hit Mother. The driver cursed us for dirtying the chassis. I was left alone. I'm 9. Collapse of humanity. Cannibalism? Not a myth. Police reports document it. Eating the bodies of dead relatives, attacking the weak. Not from bestial cruelty, from the absolute, all-consuming madness of hunger. Ghost families. Children abandon dying parents. Husbands, wives, mothers, children. The survival instinct killed the last bonds. Suicides. Hangings from tree branches. Entire families. Together. This isn't demographic loss, not wartime statistics. This is 3 million names, 3 million fates, 3 million gazes extinguished in agony, killed not by war, killed by decisions, killed by indifference, killed by cynicism, killed by a system that saw them as garbage. Remember their eyes. They stare at you from 1943. They ask, why?
Official British reports of 1944. The famine has been overcome. Demographic indicators are normalizing. Losses within the realities of war. Lies. Cynical, convenient lies to bury the truth. The real scars of Bengal are deep, bloody, and unhealed to this day. Fact 1. Killer numbers, which London downplayed tenfold. Minimum, 3 million corpses. Reality, per modern research, A. Sen, M. Mukherjee, up to 7 million. Comparison, Britain's total losses in World War II, about 450,000. Bengal lost 15 times more in 1 year. The Holocaust, the Leningrad blockade, the Bengal famine belongs in that same nightmare echelon. Fact 2. Demographic abyss. Unfillable. Lost generation. Entire age cohorts born 1925 to 1940 wiped out. Population charts show a gaping hole. Gender imbalance, more men died. Migration, hard labor, whole villages without men. Birth rates collapsed for decades. The fear of famine seared into the nation's DNA. Fact 3. Famine code in genes, a scientific bombshell. Studies from the 2000s. Children born during the famine or conceived by starving mothers. Higher risk of type 2 diabetes, obesity, heart disease. A body that endured prenatal starvation pathologically hoards fat. Lower cognitive abilities, reduced IQ. Higher rates of mental disorders, depression, schizophrenia. Why? Famine reprograms epigenetics. It cripples not just victims, but their grandchildren. Bengal still pays with its health for 1943. Your empire planted a biological time bomb. Fact 4. Economic castration. Middle class destroyed. Small farmers, artisans, fishermen, the economic backbone, dead or ruined. Land was bought up for pennies by moneylenders and landlords. Loss of skills, bearers of unique knowledge, rice varieties, irrigation methods, crafts, perished. Traditional Bengal never restored. Debt trap. Survivors drowned in debt for life-saving grain from speculators. Bondage lasted generations.
Fact 5. Political trauma. Collapse of faith in the empire. The famine was the main catalyst for the independence movement. If this is civilization, we don't want it. Bloody legacy in the 1947 partition. Migration, massacres in Kolkata, fueled by the rage of those who survived the hell of 43. Birth of Bangladesh, 1971. A resolve never to depend on foreign saviors. So no, imperial apologists, the famine didn't end in 1944. It lives on. In the shattered health of Bangladesh's elderly, in the alarming statistics of diabetes, in the demographic gaps of censuses, in the poverty of descendants of those robbed and left to die. Civilizing mission? Its outcome, a nation carrying the genetic scar of your care in its cells. You didn't just steal rice, you stole a future, and Bengal is still paying your bills.
And now, dear audience, the most elegant crime of your empire. Not the famine itself, not the millions of corpses, the artistry of their erasure from the civilized world's sight. The mechanism worked like Swiss clockwork under London's baton, the iron curtain of censorship. All telegrams from Bengal slashed by military censors. Photos of dying children confiscated and burned. Reports from honest officials, top secret, destroy. Churchill's order to editors, don't sow panic, don't undermine the nation's morale, focus on victories. Shut up about the corpses in the colonies. When truth slipped through in rare reports by the Statesman or the BBC, the imperial excuse machine kicked into gear. Alas, crop failure due to drought. Though 1943 was a bountiful year, meteorological records prove it. Overpopulation's to blame. They breed like rabbits. Churchill's favorite talking point, echoed by the press. Eastern laziness and inability to plan, said of a people whose rice fed half of Asia before the civilizers arrived. The West swallowed the bait. The New York Times wrote of sad consequences of a natural disaster in India. The Times, London, mourned the heavy trial due to war and weather's whims. Not a word about grain seizures, not a word about exports, not a word about Churchill. Colonial journalists, fearing loss of access or jobs, stayed silent or lied. Progressive Western correspondents, believing in the empire's noble mission, saw only what the bosses permitted. Sycophantic hacks penned panegyrics to Churchill the Liberator, conveniently forgetting he liberated only whites. What mastery, what finesse! Export millions of tons of rice? Done. Burn the boats? Easy. Condemn children to eating dirt? No problem. But the true masterpiece, making the world not notice. Craft an alternate reality where drought and rabbits are to blame, not a greedy empire and its racist premier. Lies, the true white man's burden, and they carried it with the pride of an executioner washing his hands on camera. While you applauded Churchill's bulldog bravery, his propagandists erased millions of victims from your consciousness. You don't just forget Bengal, you were made to forget it. That is the triumph of imperial lies.
The war's over. Victory, fireworks, Churchill on a pedestal, Nobel Prize for Literature. Bengal? Oh right, some minor drought there. Burn the archives, tons of documents on requisitions, exports, cynical resolutions, secretly destroyed or locked away for a century. London knew the truth was poison to its reputation. Official British historiography, the British Empire in Commonwealth and its ilk, and sycophantic historians lied triumphantly.
The famine was caused by a mix of Japanese threats, crop failure, and population panic. Churchill did all he could in tough times. Local authorities failed. Meanwhile, the world raised statues to Churchill, made films, wrote books, a cult of the greatest Briton. Only Bengali bones made fine fertilizer for his glory. Yet there were fighters for truth who dared to challenge the empire of lies. Amartya Sen, India, his Poverty and Famines 1981, the first bomb, proved the famine wasn't a food shortage, but a denial of rights. The colonial system deliberately cut Bengalis off from their own rice. He won a Nobel, yet Churchill's statues didn't fall. Madhusri Mukherjee, India, USA, Churchill's Secret War 2010, a demolition of imperial archives, unearthed Churchill's diabolical quotes, orders to blockade, export figures. The empire howled, slander against a hero. Janam Mukherjee, USA, Hungry Bengal 2015, exposed London's deliberate sabotage of local efforts, shattered the myth of Bengal's passivity. Memorials to victims in Dhaka, Chandpur, demands for official recognition of genocide. History textbooks, the 1943 famine, not a drought, but a colonial crime. But the lies fight back. Here's how Britain, without a shred of shame, lies today. Context, darling, context. Churchill was fighting Hitler. He made tough calls. Killing a couple of million colored people is fine for the greater good. Don't judge the past by today's standards. A favorite apologist stamp. But Churchill's racism shocked even his contemporaries. Viceroy Wavell wrote in his diary, his contempt for Indians is pathological. Yet the statues stand, in London, in Parliament, on Bengali bones, each one a spit in the face of the victims.
So know, you objective historians, the battle for the truth about Bengal isn't over. It's raging right now. In archives still classified, in Bangladesh classrooms where children learn we were killed, not we died. At the foot of your cursed monuments to the butcher, which will stain with truth until they crumble. Every book by Sen, Mukherjee, Janam, a bullet to the bronze forehead of your idol. Every memorial in Dhaka, an indictment of the empire. We won't let you whitewash history, because the ashes of 3 million pound in our hearts. They demand not tears, but truth. 1943, Bengal. Millions of bones buried in the empire's forgotten soil. You think this is the past? You're wrong. It's a mirror. Look into it. Colonialism didn't die. It shed its skin. Then it was plunder at gunpoint. Now it's unequal exchange. Nigeria's oil for pennies. Congo's rare earths for glass bead stocks. Africa's famine for your biofuels and cattle feed. The same rice pump, the same victims, new labels. Globalization, free market. Racism isn't prejudice. It's a weapon of genocide. Then, beastly people breeding like rabbits, Churchill. Now, they bring crime, violence, drugs. Their culture is incompatible with our civilization. The same poison of dehumanization, the same order, don't help. In the Mediterranean, at the US border, boats sink, children die. Your leaders shrug. Tragic, but it's their choice. Then, rice exports from Bengal sailed under guard. Now, Gaza's blockade. UN.
100% of the population on the brink of famine. Churchill's siege tactics in the hands of new executioners. Yemen, Saudi coalitions destroy ports, markets, fields. Millions of children, skeletons with big eyes. The world stays silent and sells weapons to the killers. And once again, Western propaganda serves as a smokescreen for murderers. Then they screamed, drought, overpopulation, Eastern laziness. Now, humanitarian corridors that get bombed, fighting terrorism while starving children. The language of lies is polished. The essence is the same. The victims are to blame. We're innocent.
You've watched to the end. You've seen hell. You've learned the truth. Now, get up from your chair, because memory isn't a museum exhibit. It's a weapon. And right now, it's in your hands. What to do? Concretely, strike at the algorithms of lies. A like isn't just a thumbs up. It's a battering ram against oblivion. YouTube's algorithm must push this video to those still worshiping great Churchill. A subscription isn't just another channel. It's your name on the resistance list. Our next strike against other imperial myths is coming. It'll be loud. And a repost isn't just sharing. It's sabotage behind propaganda's lines. Let your friends, colleagues, doubting relatives see Bengal's mirror. Let their cozy lies catch fire. Blow up the silence with a comment. But don't just write shocking or horrible. Ask a splinter-sharp question. Why does a statue of a butcher of 3 million lives stand in London? Where did the 80,000 tons of rice from dying Bengal go in 1943? Which modern Churchill is starving Gaza, Yemen, or Sudan right now? Your comment isn't text, it's a blade. Drive it into the rotting flesh of the imperial myth. Make apologists scramble to hide from the truth. Find a famine victims memorial in your city or create a virtual one. Lay a flower, take a photo, post it with hashtag Bengal Famine Truth. Ask at your school or university, why do textbooks talk about drought instead of rice exports and Churchill's racism? Demand truth. It's the currency of the future.